What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Real Life on the Wellspring podcast. My name's Brian.
And I'm Craig.
Nice. We took a couple weeks off.
Yeah.
I think that's okay.
Yeah, well, we had a couple of fill-ins that wasn't us. So if you haven't listened, then there's other folks and different voices to listen to. So that's cool.
For sure, yeah. Asha started a series on our podcast called This Hope. So if you haven't listened to her, you can tune in and check that out. We've also got all of our teaching up on the podcast now. So
Absolutely.
That's
loved listening to Asha's podcast yesterday. It was cool.
Good stuff. Yeah. Good stuff. I was actually talking to Ashley, who runs our social media. So if you follow us and you want to know who's behind our social media, if you haven't figured it out already, it's Ashley. I was like, man, we're putting out a lot of content.
We've got tons out there, so that's cool.
Hopefully some of it's worth it. Worth listening to, right? Hopefully this one will be, right? So on this podcast talking about real life, I thought it would be interesting to kick around an idea that I don't think that we've completely touched on yet. I don't remember talking about it yet. But what do you do in life? Sometimes this happens. I'm sure very occasionally it's happened to you. But what do you do if you don't get it right all the time? Like maybe there's a problem in a relationship, or maybe a circumstance, whether it's your job, whether it's your marriage, whether it's you name it, and something goes wrong, and it was a little bit you, or maybe a lot of bit you. Like, how do you handle that? How do you walk through a relationship, a circumstance? How do you walk through life when you're the one who screwed up?
Yep, this happens a lot.
To you?
Seriously,
No.
man. This happens a lot.
No, of course. Of course. All of us do.
Believe it or not, it happens a lot. Yeah. Isn't that way? You sort of always think, everyone else just kind of gets it all together, but I make more mistakes than everybody else.
Yeah.
But, no.
Yeah. Unless if you are listening and you're a person and you don't think that you make mistakes, you think it is everyone else.
Yeah.
You probably need to go see a clinician.
Right.
Like there might be a diagnosis behind that.
Right.
If you think everyone else has the problem and it's never you.
Right.
I think it's me pretty often.
Same. I often get in trouble. Often get in trouble.
I think I've always been good at breaking things.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's in relationships. I can fracture them.
Yep.
I can cause some brokenness in me and around me by the choices that I make.
Yeah. And it makes me think about this idea that you often hear people say, your actions speak louder than words, but words are pretty powerful. Words are pretty powerful.
They are. I'm sure I've wounded people with what I say. I can be pretty sharp with what I say sometimes.
And I don't know about you, but I speak to a lot of people in the church, and there is things that folks remember that someone said many years ago that's landed and stuck, and still carries the heavy weight.
Oh yeah.
So maybe something I've said has stuck and hurt and caused a heavy weight for somebody else.
Yeah, that is a not a comforting thing to think about.
Not at all. So this idea of choosing our words carefully, and I think the Book of James talks a lot about
for sure.
that. But what we say, and then when we, as you say, when you see that it doesn't land right, when you see that it causes an offense or a problem, how do we handle that?
Yeah, how do I handle when I'm in the wrong?
Yeah, especially when I go back and think about it and think, that wasn't the nicest way to say it, or that wasn't good.
Yeah, that, like I said, that certainly happens to me. I've certainly done it.
Right.
And I don't like it when I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. I like to pretend that I admit when I'm wrong quickly, but I don't know if it's to me it seems quick.
Right.
It might not seem quick.
Yeah, well, next week's quick, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. I'll eventually come around and apologize.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe there's a couple things that I think we've already touched on, even just in conversation that's kind of lighthearted on the front end, is first realizing that you've done something wrong.
Right.
If it's in a relationship, whether it's with my spouse, I can own I said this thing, and that was really cruel of me to say that. Like I was lashing out, and I shouldn't have done that.
Right.
Or even in a work relation, I belittled you, or I didn't respect you, and I want to acknowledge that.
Right.
That is just that first step.
Yep. So first acknowledging that it was an issue, and then taking the second step of I'm gonna speak it out that I made a mistake.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people, I can get caught up in that first step of acknowledging that I messed up, because I quickly get into the reason why I said that, though. Like, you provoked me, right? Yep. But or you don't understand how stressed I am, or the pressure I'm under. Right. You would excuse me if you just understood.
I think we've used the example before, but it's such a good example. Is this idea that when someone cuts me off when I'm driving, then they're a so-and-so, you know? I cut somebody else off, it was because I was distracted, or I had something on my mind, or, I'm justified in doing it.
Yeah, everybody slower than me is a moron. Everybody faster than me is a maniac. Right. I can drive perfectly. Yep. And I can adopt that same type of mentality. Yep. And I think that's something that we all do. Yeah. But when we're talking about real life, I'm trying to be a Christ follower. So if I'm a Christ follower and I wrong you in some way, I need to first realize that I did that. Right. And sometimes, sure, I might not have even realized that what I said was offensive. Yep. Or because maybe I'm acting. I'm not being empathetic at all. Right. I'm acting just in my own world. I have lots of things to do, and lots of people are busy. Yep. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with being a busy person. And I didn't even realize that interaction. In that interaction, I was cold, or I was fast.
Guess what? When you are interacting with other people, you are going to upset them and offend them.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
That happens.
Get over it. Yeah.
And some people are easily offended.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think maybe that's a different conversation for a different time. Sure. But when I do something that's wrong, when I wrong you,
yes.
First I need to realize it personally, acknowledge it personally. I don't like to do that. And I think the reason is because I don't like to think that there's something wrong with me. Yeah. Especially if I'm a Christ follower, I go to church and I sing these songs, and there's this pressure. I'm a pastor. There's not supposed to be anything wrong with me. I'm a pastor. Yep. Right? I've been following Jesus for a long time. There's not supposed to be anything wrong with me. Yep. And so there's this huge just aversion to even recognizing, I think I am in the wrong here.
I genuinely made a mistake. Yeah.
People don't want to do that. Right. I don't want to do that.
Now, there's a couple of ways you can go with that. One, and I know I've gone this way myself, is I've made a mistake. Oh no, I'm bad. I'm not good enough. I have issues, and I go into victim mode. That's one way, and I know there's a few other folks maybe that do the same. Or there's the other side of it is you go, oh yeah, but unjustify it, and it's okay, and it wasn't really that bad, and but somewhere in the middle, there's this sweet spot that says, I genuinely made a mistake. That doesn't mean I'm bad. It means I made a mistake. Yeah, and nor does it mean that I have to ignore it or justify it, but I need to correct it.
Yeah, I think both of the examples that you give are still trying to avoid. I still think I'm trying to protect myself. I think people go into victim mode because it feels good. Yep. You know what I mean? Like, that's an excuse. Right. Well, I'm just, there's just something wrong with me. Yeah. And you say like, oh, well, you're really beating yourself up. It's like, I am. And I'm hoping that you'll see me beating myself up and you'll come to me and be like, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. You're not that bad. And then go, oh, it's okay. I'm not that bad. Right. Like that's what that tendency.
It's a sick way to do things, and it shows a complete lack of understanding of who Christ says I am.
Yeah,
right?
Total self-awareness, like lack of self-awareness.
But I do it.
Yeah, 100%.
And I've been there. Yep.
That, or like you were saying, they did bad stuff too.
Yeah.
Like they're screwed up too.
Yep.
Like this whole thing is just screwed up.
Yep.
And I tell you what, I'll own my stuff when they own theirs.
Yeah, and theirs is way more than mine. Mine was bad, but theirs was really bad.
Yeah, except for I don't feel like that's the type of life that Jesus died for you to live.
No.
Like that's just not how that works.
Yep.
And so if I'm a Christ follower, I need to acknowledge, be willing to see I did that and that was wrong.
Yep.
Like I wronged that person.
Right.
And two, be willing to go to that person.
Wow.
That's the scary part.
Yeah.
That's the scary part. Because it's one thing if I know that I did something wrong, but maybe they don't know.
Right.
Or maybe they'll just get over it.
Yep.
Maybe I can just not say anything.
Yep.
And it's a little dicey right now. Like, I got to walk on eggshells at the house now. Or when I see that person, I'll avoid eye contact for the next little bit. And then maybe the whole thing will kind of settle down. And I never have to say anything. They never have to say anything. And then we can just go on.
Yep.
And that'll be it.
Yep. That's a good way to start a cancer.
Absolutely.
It really is. That sort of thing just festers and never goes away.
No, absolutely.
And I know from good experience.
What happens is you just build on top of it more and more and more and more, and especially in a relationship. Like, and when I say relationship, I'm not just talking about like a romantic relationship. I'm talking about any relationship. If
Absolutely.
If that doesn't happen, if I wrong you, and I don't first acknowledge it to myself, and then we'll go acknowledge it to you. All I'm doing is covering it up.
Yep.
And covering it up, covering it up, covering it up, covering it up, covering it up. And before you know it, like there's this mountain between us.
Right.
And we don't know how to navigate around it.
Yep.
And it's like, well, I don't know where to go to from here. So maybe I need to get a new job.
Yeah.
Or maybe I need to get a new spouse.
Or yes, exactly. Right. That's why these things happen, because working things out is really, really hard. And it's easier to walk away.
Yeah.
It's easier to ignore it. It's easier to say, I'm not going to address this. And that's not the answer.
So what's a good way to address a wrong something that you've done wrong to a person?
Yeah. Well, I could run around and tell everybody else about it. Not.
I think that's a good first step.
Yeah.
Like go around and tell everybody else.
Right.
Let me tell all my friends, and I'll tell your mama, but I won't tell you.
Oh my
that
goodness.
is, Craig, what we call drama.
Yeah.
Like that's a great way to cause drama. Have you ever met someone that just seems to be just wrapped in drama all the time?
Right.
There's always something so dramatic.
Yeah, I did this, and let me tell you about it, and then I did it, and I was really bad, but they did this and they did that, and
it just follows people around. Yeah. So I would recommend not going and telling everyone else. Yeah. Right. So
this idea of going to someone to rebuild and even build upon the relationship on the back of a mistake is really, really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do. But it's such an important step is to go to them and say, let's sit down, let's work this out.
I feel like it does the opposite of what we expect it to. If I do something wrong, if I've wronged you in some way, me going to you and talking to you about it seems like it would just rip the relationship apart.
Yeah.
When in reality, what it does is it creates intimacy in a relationship.
Right.
It's like, hey, I said this thing and I shouldn't have said it.
Yep.
And I apologize for that. Like that was wrong of me. Not so
that's good.
That's a good way to model it.
Yeah.
Not, hey, I said this thing, but the reason I did is because you said this thing and I was offended, and I just want you to know that you made me mad first. And so that's why I said, like, you will never have a successful relationship of any kind if that is how you try to navigate and move your way through life.
No. And let's be real, the risk or the fear that you feel in not wanting to go and speak to them, there is a risk that they don't receive it.
Yeah.
There is a risk that the relationship remains damaged. Even if you do the right thing and say, hey, I went and made a mistake, they could say, you did.
That was awful.
Yeah. and I'm never going to forgive you, and blah blah blah.
Yeah,
that's a risk that you take, but you can't be responsible for someone else's response.
No, you can't.
And I can only be responsible for what I do and say, and therefore, when I've made a mistake, to go directly to that person and address it with humility and kindness and respect, and to bring it up. I made a mistake. That's got to be the first step, and you got to be able to do that without being concerned about the response from that person, and that's hard.
Yeah,
that's really hard.
I think a good exercise is to maybe, whether you have to look in the mirror or whether you want to do it right now as you're listening, and you take a big deep breath and you just say, "I messed up. I was wrong."
Yeah,
like you're allowed to say those words.
Yep.
Like they're actually, to me, I think they're very healing, if not in the relationship as a whole, just personally.
For you, yeah.
Just for you.
Yep.
I messed up, and I want to own that.
And ultimately, the reason I would do that is because my relationship with Christ is more important. It's more important than my relationship with others. And yes, he wants me to have good relationships with other people. But if I trust him, and trust who he says I am, then me doing the right thing is all that matters.
Yeah. Like ultimately it comes to, I can do that when I understand that my relationship with him is fixed. Like that is,
right.
My relationship with him is fixed and anchored, not going anywhere. It's like immovable.
Right.
It's not going in. He's not walking out. Like it's not going anywhere. And when I live there, I can have a relationship with you or with someone else. And when there's brokenness in the relationship that I create, I can come to you and go, "Hey, I messed up here."
Right.
And I want to right that wrong.
Yeah.
Like I'm sorry that I did that.
Yep.
And whether you receive it or not, and I don't want to make it out like, "Oh, this is easy. Who cares if they receive it?" Because it can be really difficult. Like when there's brokenness in a relationship, and I come to you and say, "Hey, I messed up here,"
Right.
and this person is wounded or offended, and maybe they don't receive it right out of the gate.
Yep.
Or maybe their reaction isn't like, "Oh, well, let me hug you and everything's good."
Yeah.
Like that. I don't want to make it like it's easy. I understand that's difficult, but I can do that difficult thing when I understand that my relationship with Christ is fixed.
Yeah.
Like, okay, like I messed up.
Yep.
I'm not messed up.
Right.
You know
Right.
what I mean?
Say that again.
Like,
say that again.
I,
That is so
I
important.
messed up,
Yeah.
but I'm not messed up. Like it's so many people they think they are the thing that they did.
Yep.
It's like, that's not who you are. That's what you did.
Yeah.
You did
That is so
something
good.
messed up.
Yeah.
You're not messed up.
Right.
Like, but if you allow that message to sit over you, and maybe that message sits on you because that's what your parents told you, or that's what a spouse told you, or like what you're talking about. Someone in the past said that to you, and it just hangs over you all the time. I'm just messed up.
Yep.
Like I'm worthless.
Yeah.
Somebody says that to you, and it just hangs over your head, or you're weak, and it just hangs over your head of, "Oh, that's just what I am." It's not who you are. Like, sure, you might have done something that was weak.
Yep.
You might have done something that was messed up.
Yep.
But you're not messed up. You're not weak.
But of course, if I continue to do these things, if I go to people when I make mistakes and I attempt to, then I'm earning brownie points with God, aren't I?
Yeah, that's how that works.
Yeah,
that's how that works.
That's how you become a better Christian.
Yeah, that's Brian, chapter number 4.
I mean, these are things to do because Christ loved me first, loved you first, not to earn brownie points. He's going to love me. He's mad about me. He's crazy about me. He just thinks that I'm awesome no matter what I do. This is something I should do because it's the right thing to do, but it doesn't earn me brownie points with God.
Yeah.
And nor does not doing it slide you down the scale either.
Yeah, for sure. Like, "Oh, I can't believe you didn't apologize to that person."
Right.
You're the worst.
Right.
Like it's the exact same thing that we were talking about. You are not the worst thing you've ever done.
And just so everyone knows, I'm preaching to myself right here because I fall into this trap on a regular basis.
For sure. Yeah, you are not the worst thing you've ever done. You're not the worst thing that's ever happened to you. But those are important things to hold on to, because it seems like whether it's culture or whether it's just our own sickness wants to tell us that. And that's why it's so important to know that your relationship with Christ is fixed. But there's a really interesting idea that I want to get to when it comes to righting wrongs, right? Like I want to right the wrongs that I can. If I've wronged someone, I want to do that ultimately because, and again, this goes back to like if you're a Christ follower, I want to interact with people with the idea of eternity in mind. Right. Like there's going to be a time where I think all of us are going to, if you're a Christ follower, this is what Christians have traditionally believed for thousands of years. There's going to come a time where I am going to give an account for my life, right? And the standing that I have is Jesus' standing, not my own. But when you read in the New Testament, there's something that's really beautiful about the kingdom coming, right? We believe the kingdom of heaven is here and also not yet, right? And so there's an idea that Christ, when he comes, is going to right every wrong. Like that's one of the things that followers of Jesus look to and hope for his appearing, because he is going to right every wrong. And so maybe there's been someone who has wronged me. Maybe there's been someone who has wronged you. Like I can look out in the world and I can see tons of wrongs everywhere.
Every second of the day.
And I can, when I see those, even though it might create heartache in me or sadness, or man, somebody has to do something, and all those things are normal reactions. As a Christ follower, there should be some part of you that says Christ is going to right every wrong, every wrong that exists, and maybe Christ in me in this relationship can right every wrong that's between us. And so there's kind of an idea that I wanted to kick around and talk about as a Christ follower, is that Jesus is going to right every wrong with his appearing, and that gives me hope.
Right.
It also should encourage me to right the wrongs that I can this side of me giving an account for my life. If Christ is going to right every wrong, I would much rather have the opportunity to right those wrongs with you now.
Yep.
As opposed to later on when Christ is going to right every wrong. That means he's going to right my wrongs.
That's good.
Every time I've wronged you, every time I've wronged a brother, every time I've wronged a sister, every time I've wronged someone,
right?
Christ is going to make all those wrongs right.
Yep.
He's going to wipe every tear. He's going to make all those wrongs right. And so I have an opportunity now to right the wrongs.
Yep.
That should be something that motivates us to when I've wronged someone, is to look at that and say, okay, with eternity in mind, I want to take the opportunity and go, hey, I messed up. I messed up. Because I don't want to, in a moment where I'm giving an account for my life and it's me and the Lord, him say, you see this wrong? You see when you wrong this person? Like, that wasn't me.
Yeah.
That wasn't me.
Yep.
You know? And like, I want to take those opportunities now.
Right.
Like, I want to take those opportunities now to go to someone and say, hey, I was wrong here and I apologize.
Yep.
Like, and I want to make that right. And we have that opportunity now. I want to take that opportunity now.
I like that a lot.
And it gives me hope, because maybe I've been wronged. He's going to right every wrong. You know what I mean? And like, maybe there's someone, like I can think of, like this example is like, maybe there's someone and they've wronged you and they got their way and you didn't get your way.
Right.
But they got their way. And it's like, I was talking to a friend just the other day, and it was not to get into the whole circumstance, but it was very similar to kind of what I was describing. This person really got their way, and it was at the expense of my friend. And he was like, "Man, I'm angry about this. I'm really angry about it." He's like, "This affects my family, all this other stuff." And I said, "I understand that. Like, believe me, I understand that."
Yep.
And he was like, I feel like I need to do something. I feel like I need to right this wrong. I was like, "Well, you didn't do any wrong, though."
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, but I feel like they need to pay." And I was like, "I get it. I understand.
It's not your job.
I understand, yeah, but that's not.
Yeah.
That's not. I understand wanting to be angry,
Right.
And we even used the example. He's like, Jesus was angry.
Yeah.
Like he made the whip and he flipped over the table and he ran him off.
Right.
And I said, do you want to do that or do you want to let him do that?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's good.
and that's the thing is like, Christ will right every wrong.
Right.
The people who are out there that have wronged you,
Yeah.
Christ will right every
Those
wrong.
wrongs, yeah.
Like that's what he does.
Yeah.
Like he will do that.
Yeah.
And so that's like, man, that's life.
Yeah.
That's life and it's opportunity now. Like, because guess what? There has been and there will be people that I'm going to wrong. I'm gonna mess up.
Yep. And what comes to mind in all of that is that he loves them just as much as he loves me, which is an infinite amount. And that changes my perspective when I think about how much Christ loves the other person. Changes my perspective about whether I'm going to try and get revenge or something else, because that's not for me. It hurts me to do that.
Yeah.
And when I think about how much, like you said, he's going to correct their wrongs, and as you said, that's not my job.
Yeah.
That's not the role that I have to take.
No.
But I do need to think about the things that I've done that have not been correct.
Yeah.
And address them as soon and as early as I can.
Yeah. Because
that's just a good thing to do.
Because at the end of the day, if I've been wronged, or if you've been wronged, and you spend all kinds of time and effort and energy thinking about how it should be made right.
Yeah.
Right? Or how you would make it right. And all, what you're doing is you're allowing that wrong to just steal from you.
Yeah.
To take from you and steal from you. It'll steal your joy. It'll steal your hope.
Yep.
It'll steal energy. It'll steal passion. It'll steal all those things from you. So in this scenario, this made up scenario I'm talking about, this person has wronged you.
Mm-hmm.
They've taken from you. And then you just continually give them more and more and more and more out of your desire for vengeance.
Yeah.
Instead of going, Christ is going to right every wrong.
Yep.
Guess what? In this relationship,
He cares about them as much as me.
yeah,
It's going to happen.
yeah. And in this relationship, there's probably been wrongs of mine that I need to be willing to look at,
Right.
and willing to own.
Yep.
And like move, like be free, move from there.
Yep.
I can't tell you the amount of people who are either trapped by their own unwillingness to see their own wrongs and the guilt that presses down on them, or the loneliness that they feel from the outcome of that decision of not being willing to see how you've wronged someone.
Right.
Like, man, there's so many people that I run into that are either like that, or it's the exact opposite, where they are so hung up on something that someone did to them.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, that's a prison.
It's a hopeless place to be.
Yeah.
Because I feel that there is no solution, and it just damages me, and I know it well because I've been there. I've parked myself there for a while, and it hurts.
And I feel like our house church was meeting last night, and there's a passage in 2 Corinthians, and it's chapter number 2, not 2 Corinthians. Colossians chapter number 2. And the idea, it's going through a list of things of what someone else is doing, and it says, and you weren't holding fast to Christ. Like, so the solution, or what ends up happening, is when that type of thing dominates your life, it's like the I talked earlier about how my relationship with Christ is fixed.
Right.
I'm tethered to him.
Right.
Right. Like I'm holding on to that rope. But as the worries or the desire for vengeance or my unwillingness to admit my own wrongs, and as that clouds me and clouds my sight, what ends up happening is like I can no longer see what I'm tethered to.
Right.
I don't realize anymore that I'm tethered to Christ, that I'm holding fast to Christ. I don't even realize it anymore.
Right.
Because all this stuff is in my way.
Yeah.
Like when the solution is to realize, oh yeah, my relationship with Christ is fixed one. And it's from that immovable relationship that I can relate to other people.
Right.
But when I lose that, that's when I don't want to admit my own wrongs. That's when I'll remind you or never forget your wrongs.
Yep.
And that's not real life. And that's not the type of life that Jesus died for you to live.
Absolutely. And like I said, I mean, it's like a cancer. It plants that seed of brokenness that grows and becomes embittered and really negatively affects my ability to go through life.
Yeah. Okay, so
really
we can ask you, I can ask myself, and we can ask everyone who's listening to do a really scary thing. And I would probably bet there's someone in your life that you could say, hey, I'm wrong here. Hey, I did this and that was wrong.
Yeah. I did something. I said something.
Yeah.
That was
wrong. And I know that, and I'm sorry.
Yeah. Wow.
Maybe
what would it be like if we all went and did that?
Imagine how different the world would be
goodness.
if people would do that on a regular basis. Imagine how different your life would be. Imagine all your relationships, how different it would be if maybe just today we can practice that and go find somebody that you've wronged because you know you have. You know you have. and
not dumping any guilt on you or shame on you here, but we are.
Yeah, it's happened.
It's true. It's real, and it is true. And if you need some help to talk it through with someone, then that's why these relationships are important. It's okay to have a close relationship and say, I did this wrong, but I'm not sure how to correct it. Don't go running around speaking to 10 people, but one close person. I need some help with this
For sure.
and I want to fix it. It's hurting. It's hurting them. It's hurting me.
Yeah.
Let's get it fixed.
Hey, and if you're looking for people to have those real relationships with, you should come hang out with us on a Sunday morning.
Absolutely.
At Wellspring, 10 a.m., the Bear Levin Studer YMCA.
Yep.
We'd love to hang out with you guys. Thanks for tuning in. This has been a fun one. Share it. Follow us on social media everywhere like that. Love you guys. See you sometime soon.
See you later.